Hoi hoi, Rinda here. Before I hiked the Kungsleden, I watched a lot of YouTube videos and one of them had a few tips about hiking the trail. Now that I've actually hiked the trail myself, I have some information I would like to add, so here's my video with some tips and information about hiking the Kungsleden. The waymarking of the Kungsleden is excellent throughout and almost foolproof. There are two types of waymarks. First orange and later red paint on rocks and trees, and large poles carrying crosses. The paint on rocks and trees are for the summer trail that you'll be hiking, and the large crosses are for the winter trail that will be done with skis maybe or a snowmobile. So stick to the paint markings because the winter trail cannot be followed in summer. It will lead you to rivers that will be frozen in winter, but during the summer you can't cross them, of course. The summer trail is a very obvious trek, so you should have no trouble route finding during the day. Despite all that, you can get lost on the Kungsleden, and I did hear from a few hikers who took a wrong turn. Mind you, I hiked the trail northbound from Hemevan to Abisko, so maybe it's different if you're headed south. If you hiked the Kungsleden southbound and took a wrong turn, let me know in the comments so other hikers can be aware. The trouble is that at certain huts several trails intersect and it's not always clearly marked which trail is which. I heard from two Slovakians who hiked to Stugan and took a left turn after the bridge. They ended up in a village that was certainly not part of the Kungsleden and had to take a taxi back to Hemevan to start the trail all over again. So a major bummer for sure. At Stugan, the actual trail starts behind the latrines with orange markers. So take care when you get there. The second time I saw for myself where you could easily take a wrong turn, and that was at Tarnasjo Stugorna. To the left of the hut there's a little trail to the stream where you can get fresh water, and there you will encounter the orange markers that have been so familiar for the past few days. But those orange markers do not belong to the Kungsleden. On a birch tree there's a little sign saying no surfen, and by that they mean this is not the way to surf Stugan. In essence, this is not the Kungsleden. The actual Kungsleden continues past the right of the hut and is not marked with the orange or red paint markers, but you have to follow the winter trail for a while, and the paint markers will reappear when you are high up on the fell. So keep these tips in mind when you're itching to get hiking in the morning and make sure you pick the right trail, because otherwise at the end of the day you'll be very disappointed if you reach a hut that is not on the Kungsleden. I deliberately did not ask how hard is the Kungsleden, because that very much depends on your expectations, your physical fitness and how hard you make it for yourself by extending your kilometers during the day. I hiked the GR20 in Corsica, so my benchmark for a hard hike is pretty high. I actually found the Kungsleden to be fairly easy. Unless you make a bunch of stupid mistakes at the same time, the Kungsleden will never put you in mortal danger. There are some short, steep climbs, but they are not technically difficult. You do not have to scramble using your hand and feet navigating rocks. There were loads of boardwalks across soggy terrain and a few easy river crossings where I could simply hop from rock to the other shore. Mind you, I hiked in August and September, so maybe it's different if you hike in the springtime with the snow melt or if the weather is really bad. So always take care and judge a river carefully. I did bring my trekking poles, both for balance and to ease some of the pressure off my knees, and to test the grounds in the peat and boggy areas where there weren't any boardwalks. I only went up to my knees once, so I think that's a good result. The hardest part of the trail for me was really between Kvikjok and Partestugan, which was very rocky and you really can't get into your stride there. So I think it's a great irony that I absolutely love the mountains and dislike hiking on rocky trails so much. The trail is very wet, with streams crossing it and sometimes even using the trail as a stream bed, so be prepared to hike with wet feet very often. Going north there are supermarkets in Hemevan, Amarnas and Jakvik, but later there are none. So I sent resupply boxes to Kvikjok and Saltuluokta, and I really had no issue. I sent them with the Dutch post office, and I sent them about a week before I flew to Sweden, and I really had no issue at all. But I did hear from a few hikers whose resupply boxes did not arrive at all or later than they had planned. So they either had to wait for their boxes or continue without and buy supplies in the huts. So here's a few tips about the resupply boxes, so hopefully you don't have the same issues. As far as carriers go, do not use DHL. They will not actually deliver to the huts, but to nearby hamlets, and your resupply box will be stuck there. Sometimes the hut staff will have to do groceries or buy something in the hamlet, and they will pick up your box, but that is not guaranteed at all. A lot of people send their resupply boxes with Buscot, the Swedish company, and while I was on trail I heard mixed things about this carrier. For instance, I met a German woman who sent a resupply box from Amarnas to Jakvik with specialty items that were not available in the supermarkets, and she did so at the same time as another hiker did. And while the resupply box from the other hiker arrived in time, her resupply box arrived 10 days later when she was already past Jakvik. So that was a shame for sure. I also met a hiker in Saltuluokta who was waiting for his resupply box there. It had arrived the previous day on the bus, but had not been handed over to the ferry to be carried to the hut. And when I met him the second day, the box was not at the bus at all, so he had to wait another day or resupply at the hut. My advice is to send your resupply boxes well in advance, so there's time for it to arrive at your destination. A last small tip with regards to resupply boxes is not only to include the foods you'll be eating on the trail, but also some heavier goodies that you can eat the day you collect your resupply box. For instance, I had some cans of Coca-Cola in the resupply box, and I enjoyed them very much. A membership gives you discounts to the huts and SDF managed boat crossings, as well as give you access to the huts during the day, for instance to eat your lunch or get out of the rain. So a membership is certainly useful. But does it have to be an SDF membership? You can also check out your local youth hostel organization and see if you can become a member there. If it's part of Hostelling International, then the membership will be valid in the SDF huts. And of the time, it's a bit cheaper to become a member in your own country rather than the SDF. The SDF charges a surcharge for foreign hikers so they can send you their magazine. So before you become a member of the SDF, compare the prices with the organization in your own country. Hey, what can I say? I'm Dutch after all. I hiked from south to north and had the sun in my back the whole way, except for when it rained, of course. I was planning to camp out the whole way, so I brought a solar panel and a power bank for extra juice because I had quite a few devices. Did I use the solar panel? Yes, I did. Did I need it? No, I didn't. In the end, I did stay in a few hostels and huts in Amarnas, Jakvik and Saltuluokta and was able to charge my power bank there. So unless you're actually planning to camp out the whole way, you don't really need a solar panel. But most likely the weather will force you to stay in a hostel or two, and you will be able to charge your devices there. Whether you're an experienced tour hiker or a trail virgin, you probably have researched your gear extensively and bought only the things you think you'll need. One of the things that you won't find on many online gear lists are tremendously useful on the Kungsleden, and those are waterproof socks. They're neoprene, like a diving suit, and I think they have a layer of plastic in between. Whether it rains and your boots get soaked, the trail has turned into a stream, or you didn't manage to cross a river just right, your shoes and feet will get soaking wet. Waterproof socks will keep your feet dry and comfortable even in the worst conditions, and I have enjoyed them tremendously. I have sealskins, but no doubt there are other brands out there. Just Google them and find a pair that works for you. I've heard people say that their feet might get sweaty in waterproof socks, but I have not found them so. Just give it a try because I think you will enjoy it. When I arrived in Umeå, I wanted to take the bus to Hemavan the same day, but I couldn't because the airline had lost my luggage. It didn't arrive until 11 p.m. the next day, so I started my hike a day and a half late. For me, that was not much of a problem because I had built in quite a few spare days in my hike. My hike took 24 days and that included 2 zeros that I could have used as well. Had I not had those spare days, I would have been in trouble for sure. I also met another hiker who had to hike really long miles and long days to make his flight back. He even had to skip Skierve, which for me was one of the highlights of the trail. So my advice is, know what you're capable of and build in some spare days because the likelihood is something unexpected will happen. Whether it be an injury or bad weather, make sure you have the time to enjoy your trail. There are a few nice day hikes in Abisko and in Hemavan you have the Kungsleden. So if you have a few extra days on your hands, there's always more hiking to be done. I hope these tips have been helpful. Let me know what you think and if you have questions still. Happy hiking!